Quentin's about to come in and talk about his upcoming scene, but all I want to say about that is what had happened before he comes in here was, what had happened was I did music for him for Kill Bill 2, and I was doing it for free, basically. I just wanted to learn, and I gave him an offer he couldn't refuse. I said, hey, how about I'll do the music for free, because it'll be good practice for me, and if you like it, you can use it, and if you don't, there's no obligation because you didn't pay for it, so it's just a free score if you want to try that. And he said, free score? Yeah, I'll take that. No obligation? Yeah, I'll take that. Did the music, and during that, I was talking about already him coming and shooting something on digital at my Troublemaker Studios. It turned out to be Sin City. And the idea was he wanted to try digital only because I talked about it so much, and because Kill Bill took him so long to shoot. It was supposed to be a fast shoot, and he was there forever. And I told him, man, you wouldn't have been there that long and you shot digital. He goes, that's complete blasphemy to me, but I'm only listening to you because it took me so fucking long to make that movie that I'm actually now half listening to what you're telling me. I said, well, I'll make it easy. Next time I shoot, you come down and shoot either a sequence or a short story or do something just so you can see what it's like, and you'll be there with my support group there. And he said, oh, that sounds great. So when it turned out to be Sin City, he was really jazzed. He came down and he shot, and here he comes. We'll ask him more. Yo, Quentin, come on in, man.
Hey, how you doing?
Oh, doing good. Welcome, man. And what can you tell us about your upcoming scene that begins on the cut to Dwight driving in the rain?
Well, it was funny because when you gave me this scene with the crack-up coming in, as I was a little nervous. I don't really do tons of shot lists on mine. I try to get to a point where I don't even need a shot list. I just kind of make it up as I go along in the day. But I was nervous. So I it was up late that night, and I got to Austin at the Omni, all right, writing out my shot list, trying to come up with all these different ways to shoot inside of a car, which there's only so many ways, and so I come in the morning with a shot list, only to have the first AD go, a shot list? Oh my God, we haven't seen one of these I don't know how long.
Gail said no calls.
We actually know what we're going to do today? Oh my God.
I avoid them only because I end up adding 50 more shots on the day. It's usually producer bullshit where they want a shot list, so if you ever get stuck in that situation, just lie. But now you had everything planned out, even down to the colored lights on people, which you had referenced a certain movie for that.
Yeah, it was in both, either in Suspiria and then also his kind of sequel to Suspiria, Inferno. Dario Argento would just take these gorgeous Italian model babes, all right, let them get caught in a torrential downpour, stick them in the back seat of a cab, all right, and have them drive through Rome. They were never really driving. It was always a set, just a poor man's process with just colored lights flashing through the cab and rain and the water just dripping off the girls. And it's just this great image. I was always wanting to do a scene where you're talking in the car, just in the, colored lights and dripping actors and just rain everywhere. And so when I was going through the thing, I go, hey, well, this would be perfect for that. And I remember saying, look, I don't know how we can do that in black and white, but if the thing about this digital stuff is that you can do anything you want, well, that's one of the things I want to do.
Yeah, I absolutely thought we could do it. Of course, had no idea how, so I thought, let's just put colored lights on them. We'll use a cool light and a warm light, and then we can shift the color of it to anything later on, because we'll have those two color temperatures. I think we used a red and a blue, so that we'd be able to shift it to anything later on. And if it didn't work, the effect didn't work in post, we could just take the color out, of course, and it'd be black and white, and it would still work as regular flashing lights.
Actually, I've always considered one of the cool things about shooting inside of a car is you don't have to be Mr. Super Cool Director, because there's only so many places you can put the camera that it kind of gives you a break. All right, so you just kind of juggle your car footage. All right, if you shoot it one way in a car in one scene, then you have to juggle the coverage, shoot it a different way the next time, and then shoot it a different way after that. But there's only so many things. So the idea of actually not having to deal with the car is okay, well, let's kind of move the camera around a little bit. Let's try to see if we can come up with some cool shots inside of a car that you could never do with a real car. But then the other thing that happened on this that was really cool, and it was funny because it was a repeat of something that had happened on Reservoir Dogs. There's a scene in Reservoir Dogs where Tim Roth is in the bathroom, and he's telling the story about the Reservoir Dogs a story about how he once bluffed his way out of getting busted by the cop. Then he's telling a lie, and you're seeing the construction of the lie, and then you see the lie. And it's a lie sequence, and then as he's telling the story, all of a sudden you see him telling the story inside of the scene. And how that just kind of happened was I asked Tim Roth to go through the dialogue, and I'm going to be doing a 360 around you. So why don't you just do the speech, and I'll do the 360 around so I can time it. And so he did, and looking at it through the viewfinder as I was writing the camera, as we rode around him, I was like, oh, you got to do it on camera, man. That's like the cool way to do it. All right. So we did it that way. We kind of forgot all about that, and then doing Sin City, and Clive Owen has like 2 voiceover monologues, if not 3, actually, in the course of the scene. We do like the first couple, and I actually go up to Clive to talk to him about it, and he goes, well, I did this movie Croupier, and I have a lot of voiceover, and what we did is we would just do one take with me doing the voiceover, and then that would give us a sense of how it was going to play and the timing, and then we just do the scene without it. We did that, but when we got to the middle one, where he's like, you know, he may be dead, he may be an asshole, but that doesn't stop the bastard from being absolutely right. When he was doing it through the viewfinder, it was just like, oh no, he's got to do it on camera. He just absolutely has to do it on camera. That's so the way to go. And I think it was like a situation where it was like, I think you thought it was a good idea right from the beginning. Frank was intrigued by it, but it was different. It was different than what he had thought. So he was intrigued by it, but okay, well, let's go for it, and you'll have another one where he doesn't do it, all right? I think by the time that we actually finished the thing, he'd come up like, I love it this way. But the trick, though, was actually Clive had, that's an entire monologue that Clive had not learned to do because he wasn't going to have to do it, all right? When, he read it and I thought it was such a good idea, he was reading it off of a piece of paper. And so I come to him and I go, look, can you do the entire monologue full on camera? And he goes, like, you want me to do it now? And I go, yes. How long is it going to take you to go away and learn this? Now, when you ask an actor to do something like that, the answer can be really all over the place, all right? There could be another actor to say, well, I'll see you tomorrow sometime because I can't learn this. So screw that, all right? I can't do it.
Which would have been understandable because he had less than 10 minutes to learn it.
But, he's an English actor, man. He comes from the theater, and it's just like, boom. He goes off with his dialogue coach, all right? And they just stepped off for about, maybe 8 minutes.
Yeah, it was less than 10 minutes.
Yeah, it was less than 10 minutes. For about 8 minutes and came back and then was, really spot on. Every actor is different, but that is a case of the director getting inspired on the day and having a good idea. But if the actor could not have pulled it off, could not have taken that, dialogue and learned it in that amount of time, then good idea or not, we wouldn't have been able to do it. It just shows how it all goes hand in hand. There's nothing more frustrating than be inspired and to have a good idea and for whatever reason you can't implement it.
I think it was about a year before that I was telling you about maybe coming and shooting something for me, digital, a short film of some sort. And it turned out to be Sin City. And when I approached you to do it, did it seem weird, or did it kind of fall in with how we usually do things?
Oh yeah, it didn't seem strange at all. I remember when you brought it up, and I was like, oh wow, that sounds like a really cool idea. And then when you actually came down to the editing room with Frank Miller. You brought Frank with you, and you showed me the first scene with Josh Hartnett and Marley Shelton. I was like, oh my God, that's really, really cool. And then you had 2 sections you wanted me to think about, but then you ended up just giving me this.
You were going to be jury president at the Cannes Film Festival, so if you shot before going to Cannes, you would have done the opening sequence of Bruce Willis on the dock with Michael Madsen. And post Cannes, which is what it ended up being, we'd be shooting Big Fat Kill at that time, so this was the scene you were going to do.
But the thing about it is, it totally works in the guy of the the kind of movie you're making and everything like that. But the reason you did it was basically because you wanted me to see what it was like to shoot on digital, and you knew I would never do it on my own. All right, so you're like, okay, well, we'll be there in Austin, and Quentin likes Austin, and we'll have a good time, and the crew will be there. He doesn't have to hire anybody or cast anybody. It's just all done for him, and he just gets to show up and just have a good time.
Got to make it easy for everybody.
And I totally did. And then when it was over with, you go, okay, so do you kind of like digital now? And I go, yeah, I would do digital again, but only here. All right, I'd do it here with your crew and your facilities. All right, then you said, well, yeah, you'd have to be an idiot to do so anywhere else. I mean, yeah, you got the hookup right here. Why would you even think about going anywhere else? That would be stupid.
And one of the other things was I had I had you operate on this camera. I usually always operate my own camera. I never trained to do it. I learned on the job, and I just stuck you on B camera while we were doing this, and it's great on HD because you have HD monitors attached to the camera. You don't have to have your eyes stuck on an eyepiece. You can watch the set and watch what you're shooting, and even watch what I'm shooting. You can click a switch and see what my camera's operating, so you can get the same coverage. What did you think about operating this?
Oh, it was great. Actually, I think I actually did the best operating I've ever done. All right, working a second camera on that scene. I was. It was funny because I've done a little bit. Every movie I've done a little bit more operating. I almost always do like the slow zooms that you see in my movies. That's usually always me. But I actually think like some of the best operating I've ever done was on this the second camera on this. I don't know how much you used of it, all right? But there was a couple of ones we were doing and we're like, the zoom is just moving in and it's, and Benicio is there and then it shifts over here. There was just kind of a couple of cool ones. Like, oh, that was pretty good. Part of the idea that was kind of neat was the fact that you could just go wherever anything was interesting. Benicio was interesting at that moment. You could just go with him, or if you're kind of set up for a composition that would allow you to gracefully move over to him, you could. Or if Clive was the one, then depending on your angle, you could be moving it around. However, I could also see what was on your camera. If you're focusing on Benicio, then I'd go to Clive, or vice versa. Actually, I heard that that was one of the things. That the French director Jean-Pierre Melville did a lot, all right, because Volker Schlondorf, the director who did Tin Drum, was his assistant director, and their assistant director was like, you're kind of like the protege director, and he said that what Melville, who did Les Samurai and Red Circle and all these like cool gangster movies, he would always have a second camera guy on the set, just like shooting handheld. And it's like his job is to just don't mess with A camera. A camera's A camera. A camera's doing its thing. All right. But then there's a second camera guy there, just trying to find whatever he can do and not get in the way. So if he sees a little angle here, or he can do a quick snap zoom into some guy's eyes during the course of one take of one scene, whatever. And it's almost like just this wild found footage that you just have to have somebody who's good enough to pull it off to do it, all right? And he said that, like, when they would, screen dailies and everything, everyone was always, okay, now let's see what B camera would look like, because you never know what you were going to get in B cam. And maybe it just might be one little shot or something in the course of one scene, but hey, that could be a little cool thing, When you were doing this, watching the making of it, all right, how much did you know how much to shoot of whatever, stuff you're doing on green screen, you're going to add stuff later. How much did you know that you needed to shoot on the day?
Well, I know one of the ways to entice Frank down to make the movie at all was, by the way, we're not going to have any sets, but we will build the bar. That way we have a place to go have script meetings. So that's why we even built the bar. Other places, we're just trying to isolate the actors from the background and from other actors. Something like the bars in Hard Against Cell, we went ahead and built that because there's a lot of shots there. And really what made that very graphic in the comic was just the fact that there was white bars against a black background. So we could kind of duplicate that look with real bars, except for a few real stylized shots where Frank's drawings seem to bend beyond physical reality. Those we did CG.
Right, exactly. And so the thing is like, if you're going to get like Bruce Willis like running through the forest, and you filmed him running on the conveyor belt thing, so that's just you deciding how wide you want the shot. All right, if you're up closer, then it's up closer. If you're wider, then that means more trees in foreground and background.
What's cool about that is all you have to do if you're doing a wide shot of him, you just have to shoot him full frame, and then we can shrink him as far down as we want later, so we can make him a really wide shot or full body. And what that just allows me to do is make the most stylized forest imaginable.
You mean when you're shooting that forest, that you mean your camera wasn't way far back there creating this little image of Bruce with nothing but like just ton of green around him? You shot him real close and you just shrunk him.
Because if you did put him actual size as how you really wanted him, you would have so little resolution you'd be working with to chop him out. He'd be all fuzzy. This way you can make him really sharp and make the background really sharp.
So literally you actually kind of like, that's like, if he was that cartoon character Inch High Private Eye, you shot a shot of him and just shrunk him and stuck him in your own creation.
And then you're kind of free. I mean, a lot of Frank's big wide shots like that are really simple graphically. So that's why why haul our ass out into a forest? It's just going to look like the fucking forest in black and white. Here we can make something that's just beyond reality, that looks real to your eye, but realistically, you could never photograph something like that and make it look like that. And that's cool. That's kind of like your own world. This is the way snow should look at night. This is the way rain should look at night. I mean, that's basically you're being Frank Miller in the world of Sin City.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, you have to almost study it to realize that's not physically possible.
Well, one of the things also that was funny is, you know, when I've tried to describe to people about how just shooting, you know, a car scene, just them sitting on green boxes with nothing, you know, real there other than a steering wheel. All right, when I try to describe it to people, either friends or directors, they're like, well, is that hard for the actors to wrap themselves around that? And then I try to explain to them that, no, that's in some ways, once they get used to it, it's the opposite of that, all right? It's all about the acting, and you know, none of the strum and drang that, you know, happens in trying to get just a scene like that off the ground. All right, which seems I'm like, you know, a couple hours waiting to get the cars up on the trucks, and okay, now they're on the trucks, here we go. Okay, don't mess up, just do it, and we don't want to hear any questions now. We waited a long time.
Yeah, so much time is spent getting the shot ready, and then it's hurry, and get the performance. Usually on a regular movie, where on here it was all about the performance.
Right? Yeah, exactly. That's when you look at the green screen version of it, it looks like you could be doing a Jean-Paul Sartre play. You know, everything is just, you know, experimental and minimalistic. But one of the things is also, I remember I was thinking, well, you know, I'm going to still want the car because, you know, I'm going to want that enforcedness that, you know, the close proximity of the car is going to create and all that. And then, you know, we shot a couple of shots of the car, but then after that I was like, hey, get rid of this car.
Yeah, in fact, it was a really small car, but it still had too much room in it. They still didn't seem like they were even that squeezed together. And then when we put our own car together, we could squeeze them together as much as we want, and then we build the car around them. So we created our own car.
And then we also had a situation where I was just sort of like, well, okay, but I'm seeing how easy it is to do it, you know, with just all this green around. I'm like, well, this is too easy. All right, this is like cheating. It's almost like it doesn't count. All right, it's, you know, I guess I do come from a little bit of the movie making is hard, and if it's not hard, what's your problem? You know, but the thing is, though, the thing that was funny was later I was on the set during the scene with Brittany Murphy's in her apartment, and that was a situation you had almost a set, but not quite a set. All right, and so all of a sudden when you guys are like, you know, now acting around a real set, I was like, well, wait a minute, now that's cheating, all right? That seems like cheating, all right? You guys were actually working on a set?
And it felt like a cheat. But again, the cheat is in context. In that context, that was a cheat. We were saving the CG artist extra work trying to track in all that background, mundane background.
Now, do you have anybody, like, working with you constantly saying, oh, you don't need to do that at the same time, you can do that separately, or do you just know it?
Ever since Dusk Till Dawn, I learned how to be my own visual effects supervisor, and I did it on the Spy Kid movies, and that's what was fun about this, is that when I did the first test, just usually if you hire a visual effects supervisor, they'll figure out how they're going to do it, and they'll go work with the effects companies, and they'll bring you shots at certain points for you to approve. And usually, you'll say, no, that sucks, start all over again. So to eliminate all that hassle, I just come up with how we're going to do the shots. I work with the artist, and then, you know, that eliminates all that confusion because the whole thing is visual. And because I'm also shooting and editing and operating, I can figure out ways to do the shots that, you know, maybe as a cameraman, I can just change this angle a little bit and I can achieve the same thing. You know, you kind of work to help make it easier to accomplish. I did a few tests for the really difficult shots early on. And then when I had those figured out, I thought, oh, the rest is just going to be a process of every day we'll look at each shot. And on the spot, I'll just figure out how we're going to do it. Because it's going to be a variation of what I did in those tests. So, you know, you can ask somebody to do it and they'll figure out their own pain in the ass way to do it. They're just pulling it out of a hat themselves. Where I can actually go, well, if I just lock down the camera, I'll just make that compromise on this end in this job, and in editing I'll make this compromise, then I can do it this way. You know, so very quickly you can come up with it. Where if you had a visual effects supervisor handling it, he'd have to go talk to the editor, he'd have to go talk to the DP, he'd have to go talk to everybody to figure out a way to do it.
Like you hire those guys just to tell you, no, well, that's very difficult to do, or that's hard to do.
Or beyond that, it's actually, I mean, I've watched a lot of these DVDs where you see behind the scenes and they see the director who may not be versed in certain areas in filmmaking. That's usually not his job, but when you're not versed in them, you might make the most unreasonable request that the crew, no one wants to tell him that that's unreasonable. And you see it on their faces, and that's what costs so much money and what takes so much time, that somebody would just to tell him or educate him in an area. it would not turn into such a big deal. But that's what happens in effects. I mean, I've seen it on scoring stages, and I've seen directors go and say, oh, "Can't we just change this and make this that?" And by that point, it's too late. You know, if they knew anything about that job, they would know that it's not possible. And you can see everyone's faces. No one wants to tell him that what he's requesting is completely ridiculous. And so what do they do? They take that as a marching order, and they go and they start doing it. And then it turns into a big pain in the ass. So if the person just knew how to do those jobs in the basic way, it would save a lot of time, a lot of money, and a lot of hassle, and a lot of wasted energy. Because to be informed is the best gift you can give yourself, your crew, your budget, and ultimately your creative freedom.
Not because they deserve it. Not because it'll make the world a better place.
And then in the complex world of special effects, or really not that complex, but if you don't know anything about it, it'll seem that way. If you make the wrong choice on the set, everyone goes off and starts to make what you want happen. And you could have easily done a better shot or a better idea by just making a compromise or changing one thing. If you knew anything about that, or if someone just had the balls to tell you that you could do it that way.
I didn't want to use any like CGI stuff and Kill Bill other than just erase wires and stuff like that. And so we had a good CGI unit, you know, they work out of Hong Kong, right? That, you know, they were erasing stuff and all that. It looked really, really good. And we do maybe two things, all right? And the two things they did that were good, they pulled off pretty cool. The thing about it was, it's like on the, you know, I didn't want to use them, but I didn't have to worry about wanting to use them, because whenever I did have an idea that could have involved CGI, I'd bring it up to them, and then everything was just such a pain in the ass to them that I was like, okay, screw it, forget it. I'm sorry I even asked. Just go back to craft service.
And that's what's so important about knowing enough about each job, that it's, you know, it's like jazz improvisation. After a while, you know all the instruments, you can just kind of go around and just freewheel it, and it's so exhilarating for everybody, because nothing's a pain in the ass anymore. It's just very free flowing. Anyone has an idea that's creative. Wouldn't it be cool if we could do this? But that's probably a pain in the ass. You can go, no, actually it's not. We'll do this. You're way ahead of anybody who would be there working with you if they were an effects supervisor.
Yeah, well, yeah, but you know, you're the one that's proven that. Well, see, once you get rid of like you know, 5 people from your little bucket brigade when it comes to a good idea to actual realization on screen, you know, once you lose about 5 people of that bucket brigade, then nothing's a pain in the ass.
When you're shooting on sets, that's the most intense time. You got the most crew working at that time. You've got to be rocking and rolling all day. You've got actors already in makeup. You've got the crew all there. As soon as you're like standing around, chit-chatting with the crew, and then looking back around, asking your AD, why are we still waiting? They go, oh, well, they're still setting up that thing that you want. You know, that's just like, oh, you almost want to erase what you said. When it became that big of a pain in the ass, and it takes an hour longer than anyone imagined. So if you can be in on that, how it's going to be done, and streamline it as much as possible, especially in the effects arena too, because that can take a long time if it's not thought out the right way, then that just simplifies everything, and then you're always flying. So that's what's cool about it. That's why it just got to the point after doing those tests, that pre-work, I didn't have to go block out all the shots. That's why our prep was so short. We only had about a week and a half to 2 weeks prep per episode, so it was really fast. You know, we just went into it and just started shooting and figured it out on the day.
You're gonna keep on living a long time to make sure of that.
Okay, that's I'm leaving now. Okay, my work here's done. Adios.
And special thanks to QT, and see you, man.